Hello class, my name is Celine Throwbridge. I will be your teacher for today. We're going to be talking about elements of art. Specifically, we're going to be learning how to compare and contrast elements of art, including lines, shape, form, color, value, perspective, and space. This is a 7th grade TEK and it is 1B. Now, how are we going to do this? Well, if you can tell next to my explanation, I have a handy little foldable. This foldable can be created easily. You start off with 3 different construction sheets. Usually different color works better. Then you separate them about 2 inches apart each. After you separate them and line them up, you're going to fold them in such a way where you can see all 6 flaps. On the top you will have your title, and on each flap you will have the elements that we just talked about. Now, in the inside, be prepared to have a definition, a use, and a visual example for your reference. This will be a handy little tool to use for further lessons in case you forget a detail or two. Now, I do suggest that you watch the entire video in its entirety before you start the foldable. Starting off with the first one, the most basic element of art is the line. Now, the line, by definition, is a continuous point or mark made by a moving point. Its uses, most basic of all art elements, and it is used to create almost all the other elements. You can use a line to create shape, form, color, value, texture, perspective, and space. Color will mostly be implied. Now, as an example, I did have some swirls, have some shapes, vertical lines, horizontal lines. Vertical lines draw your eye up, horizontal lines make there feel like there's more structure. Now, the next element that we're talking about is shape and form. Now, the reason that they're paired together is because some of these elements either are very similar but have very distinctive differences, or they go hand in hand, as in one cannot exist without the other. So, shape and form are very similar. Shape is basically a 2D space created by a line, value, or texture, or by surrounding objects, such as a circle. Now, in definition of form, it is 3D opposite. It'll still be created by space. It'll have various elements, but versus a circle, you will have something like a ball, a sphere, 3D. Now, the next 2 elements that we're going to be talking about are color and value. These 2 elements go hand in hand, except for when we're talking about values going from blacks to whites in grayscale. Now, with color, it is an element perceived by the eye by the way it reflects light or absorbs it. Its uses are to create different feelings or perception through the eyes. Now, with color, you will have light reflecting off of this or absorbing it. And the way it goes through our eyes and is perceived is how we know what color it is. Colorblind people sometimes are lacking that ability. There are 3 primary colors from which all colors come. These colors are red, blue, and yellow. In value, we have a lightness or intensity of a color or shade. So you will have something very, very intense, very pure, and then it'll shade down and down and down, usually by gradations used with white or black being added or subtracted. Now, it is to show depth, shadow, and contrast in all levels. Those are its uses. Its examples can be bright, shaded, dark, pure, or tinted. Usually you have something going from very dark to very light, or showing shadow. The next element that we're going to be talking about is texture. By definition, in 3D, it is a physical tactile quality, what can be felt by touch. Or, in 2D, it is the illusion of how something feels. For instance, going back to our ball, you can feel the texture of the rubber bands. You can feel the spaces. That is texture. But going back to our painting, texture is implied. As in the circle, there's a spackling process. And in the butterfly, the texture of the wings is implied by the strokes of the color. Sometimes even touching the painting, you can feel texture, but that is not always true. Going back to the last points is perspective and space. Perspective by definition is the illusion of depth or space within a 2D piece. That is perspective. Perspective is usually not used in a 3D piece. It is used in a 2D piece. And it is when you see maybe a road going off into the distance or a building showing like if it's very, very tall inside of a picture. That is perspective. When you're seeing something that's very tall, that would be worm's eye view. When you're seeing something like if you're flying on top of it, that would be bird's eye view. The next one is its uses to show a 3D world view on a 2-dimensional space. It creates the illusion of space. That's why they go hand in hand. It creates a 2-dimensional illusion of space. In definition, it refers to space, a 2D or 3D distances or areas around other elements. Its uses are to show the area, or to emphasize shape, or affect balance. If we're looking at a 3D object, we can see negative, positive space, dark spaces versus bright spaces. In this 3D object, the negative space is the empty space, and the positive space is the space that is filled. Negative space in 3D objects can also be useful, as in this cup. These are our basic elements of arts. Feel free to leave commentary, and I hope you have a great time. Enjoy this piece.
Sorry, I just kept like